Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the Wot Supp podcast. With your host, Stu OG Industry Shannon, and Will Warren Davey, new school formulator extraordinaire. We're talking all things supplements with insiders, athletes, experts, and more. So sit back, relax, and prepare to find out what's up.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wot Supp podcast. Today we have a very special guest for you guys, a special treat. Before I introduce him, I'm your host, Matt Highgate, of course, here with Will.
Howdy, guys.
And Stu Shannon.
G'day, guys.
Possibly like the biggest name we've had so far, right, guys? I'd say.
I wouldn't say possibly. I think it's I think it's pretty clear that it's the biggest name we've had.
But we have to apologize to our audience if we trip over our words. Like, yeah, you know why. So, so a quick intro. So for those who aren't familiar with Aaron, years before his success, Aaron was on the forums. I don't know if you guys remember Muscular Development. I think those are the forums you're on, right, Aaron?
Yeah, and then RX Muscle and everywhere else, yeah.
Yeah, writing hours and hours of content and networking with everyone in the industry at the time. What year was that? Do you remember?
Well, I got on the boards initially in around 2006, 2005, and really got the first job in 2007.
Right, so many years ago, over 10 years ago. So to cut a long story short, and multiple successful businesses along the way, with many ups and downs, of course, that the average man, I'm sure, would have thrown in the towel by now, right? So, and persisted in his 40s way, not only back to where he was, but, you know, the fastest growing supplement company in history. An exceptional father to three amazing boys, and a role model husband to Dario, the beautiful Dario Singerman, I should say. Let's give a warm welcome to the boss man himself, Aaron Singerman of
REDCON1. welcome, Aaron. It's really good to have you on. I know that you're a busy man, and the fact that you've taken some time out of your schedule to have a chat to us is absolutely awesome. And I think, you know, we should probably just get right into the good stuff, right into the juicy stuff. A lot of our listeners are actually industry people. You know, a lot of the Aussie supplement store owners, Aussie brand owners tune into this podcast. So I think maybe give us a bit of a background about REDCON1, how it got started, where the idea came from.
Sure. Well, REDCON1 started in 2016 towards, it was actually May, but it was kind of, we had the plan to get it going very quickly. So I was at the time, right before, I was the CEO of another company called Blackstone Labs, and I had it's been a well-known partnership dispute, kind of like almost like a breakup. It sounds weird to say, but it's almost like a breakup. And instead of doing a non-compete, which is usually when somebody sells shares of a company or leaves their company, they do a non-compete. So I did the opposite. I did a compete. Where I said, hey, I'm going to go and do this. And so basically a day or two after leaving Blackstone, I knew that I wanted to come back into the same space and do it much better than I had in the past. And so the really early thinking was I didn't want to be like every other brand. There's so many supplement brands. It's a very competitive space, and it's filled with brands, I mean, constantly, especially here in the States. You know, you go to the Arnold or you go to the Olympia, and there'll be 1,000 new companies with booths that I've never heard of. And then a year later, there'll be all new booths again. And I realized that. And I knew that what we have at Blackstone was really unique and special. And I knew that I didn't want to just create another brand. And so it was a decision, how do we make something different? How can I, you know, do something that's unique and special? And the thing that we came up with, the thing that I came up with Eric Hart, Eduardo Silva, a few other people. My father-in-law switched over with me. Eddie, who runs the warehouse, came over. We built a very core team. So before the company even really got going, we had 8 employees, very, very good internal core team. And so I said, okay, you know, one thing I've always loved and respected is the military. Both of my grandfathers, one of them fought in World War II. He was on the shores of Normandy and D-Day. And he fought on the front lines. And another grandfather fought in Korea. And when I was at the first grandfather, Charlie Singerman's house, I would always look in his closet as a child and see the uniform. And because he didn't talk about it very, very, very little. And stories that I heard were not awe-inspiring. They're more scary as a kid and like not so good. But that uniform always seemed to mean something to me. I would always go look at it whenever we go to their house on Friday nights and stuff. And I always thought, as a kid anyway, that I would one day serve also. And I never did. And I never did because I did drugs instead, to be totally honest.
Fair enough.
And so, you know, it is what it is. But that's always something that was important to me, important to my family, something I admired about my grandfathers. And so at that exact same time I left, right before I left, I met two guys, Brandon Cruz and Ryan Bates, who were SEAL team members. Who were the United States Navy. The SEAL team is the top tier of special forces for the Navy. And so I met these guys. And I'm like, man, these guys are so cool. They're so charismatic, funny. They're super athletes. And I'm like, man, if I could do something with these guys, that would be cool. Because, you know, we already had, I felt like I had the bodybuilding fitness industry on lock. Like I understood it. I knew it. I come from a bodybuilding background. I love bodybuilding and that kind of part of the industry I knew. So I was like, okay, if I could do something with these guys, integrate it with the military, and then we already had, so we were very fortunate within the first week, before we even had the name REDCON1, I called Dallas McCarver on the phone. So Dallas worked for Eric Hart, who's the president, now the president of REDCON1, is also a minority owner. I gave him shares in the company because of all the hard work he's done. So Eric worked with Dallas when he was at BSN. So Eric was one of the initial employees at BSN 13 years ago, and he stayed after it was purchased by Glambia. And he worked with Dallas, and Dallas was so underutilized. The only videos there were of Dallas on the entire internet was Matt's videos on his cell phone.
I remember that.
His best friend and his coach, they would do on his iPhone 5, where he is like, they're terrible quality, and he would edit them on iMovie, and that's the only videos that were on the internet. But in those videos, I had seen the kid moving, you know, he was a barbell. I remember distinctly barbell rowing 5 plates. I'm like, gee,
cool.
I mean, like really like doing it, not like throwing it, which even people, I mean, I'm on my best day, throwing 5 plates was never an option.
He was a beast. He was an
a
absolute beast.
He was a beast. And so I remember seeing him, you know, because he the same day he did that, he also deadlifted 9 plates for reps.
Jesus.
And I saw that video, and this was before REDCON1 existed, back in the Blackstone days, the end of Blackstone days. And I was like, man, if I ever had a chance to get this guy, like he'd be the best, because not only does he have a good personality from what I could tell, but he was ridiculously big and he could move crazy weight. So he's like, to me, I always thought of him as like honestly, the kind of undiscovered white Ronnie Coleman.
He's very humble as well.
Very humble. And so I called him before we even had a name. Within that first week, I called him on the phone and I said, hey man, I really love to work with you, and I'd love for you to be part of this new brand that I'm coming up with. And me and Eric talked about it. We think you're the right guy to be kind of the face of the brand for bodybuilding. And he's like, well, what's the idea of the brand? He said, look, the idea basically is we're going to put out content, tons and tons of content. You're going to be the most viewed, well-known bodybuilder in history by the end of this thing. Because at the time he had, like on Instagram, he had 80,000 followers, and he really was getting to be a little popular, but he was not nowhere what he was at. And I was like, by the end, you know, you're going to be more well-videoed than anybody ever. And we're going to show everybody, and we're going to provide value with REDCON1 via content, and hope that people come back and purchase a t-shirt or a product because they love the value we're putting out. He goes, okay, how do I sign up? And I was like, so the only thing is you can't live in Tennessee. You have to move to Boca, and you got to move like right away.
trying to take a country boy out of the country isn't an easy thing either, right? One of my employees is a country boy, and he was an employee of a former company that I worked for, and I poached him over to my company, and it was very hard to get him to come here, but you know, he came, and I'm glad he did.
It was, you know, honestly, I say it was, but honestly, it really wasn't. It was like he believed in Redcon enough to take very little convincing to come down and give it a shot. And for me personally, that meant a lot, because at that point, I felt like it was going to be good, but I didn't know. And for some reason, Dallas saying, okay, I'll move everything and I'll be there in a week, and change his whole life, that gave me confidence. It was like, okay, so this is the right idea. Like the universe, this was a sign like, hey, this is going to be something special. And Dallas moved down, and Ryan Bates and Brandon Cruz came on as our first athlete / ambassadors with Dallas at the same time. And we started pumping up the brand without telling anybody what it was. And Dallas was wearing when he won the Chicago Pro, he was wearing REDCON everything. So was Matt Jansen. So was everybody there.
He was squatting center plates in those
yes,
compression tights. I remember that.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So we started posting pictures and Instagram stuff and showing people. And at that point, I wasn't even telling anybody I was involved with it. I was just letting the logo. And so when people would ask Dallas, what is REDCON1? He'd say, I'm not allowed to tell you. I told everybody to say, I'm not allowed to tell you. And
builds the suspense, right? Like curiosity killed the cat.
Literally. So I feel like that was a big reason, because of Dallas, because of the strategy of keeping it a secret, because of me not saying I was involved. When we did do the release and let everybody know, the website turned, we talked about pushing the button, the website turned live. And I was very nervous because I didn't know, like we did all this work and I put all this money into this, getting the products and of course I was paying for 8 employees and 3 athletes. And
not everyone knows you also took out a terms, I think it was a terms loan on something, $500,000 or something from memory.
Well, yeah. So I was very lucky to have a manufacturer who believed in me, because he gave me $500,000 in terms on products for the initial run of the product. So he gave me the $500,000 and said, look, you got 60 days to pay me back. And what ended up happening was we turned on the site, and within an hour we did $20,000 in sales on the site. And the orders just, it was like people were ready, and it was bing, 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 bing.
Your first order in Australia would have been me. I remember that. Me, buddy.
Hey, that's your claim to fame, Matty. First Australian to have REDCON1.
I can see what number you were at, what number order you were at. It kicked on, and the really cool thing was that all the efforts, were worthwhile, and I could tell right away, and there was a big sense of relief. And then within those first 60 days, I was able to sell enough supplements to be profitable in the first 60 days. So I paid back the $500,000 in products, and we've been in the black and profitable ever since, which is an extremely rare thing. So people say, well, how much money did you put in to start REDCON1? Really nothing. I mean, the $12,500 for the first month's rent, and then the employees for the 3 months till the products were made, and that was it. Because we were very, very fortunate to develop demand quickly.
It really has rocketed into success, right? Like, I mean, I started selling supplements in 2009, and we stocked Blackstone and all that stuff. So I was aware of you for quite some time, but it's almost like REDCON1 came out as a big brand. It wasn't like it came out as a startup. It came out, and it was almost as if we already knew what it was before we did, which was very cool. So whatever marketing you guys put behind that,
credit to Aaron for that, because he's very charismatic. I remember when he'd do the Blackstone videos and he'd talk with his former business partner, and I wouldn't listen to his other business partner for whatever reason. I just listened to Aaron. No, I'm just being real. I listened to Aaron and gravitate towards him for some reason. And then when he started REDCON, I didn't know nothing about Dallas McCarver. I knew about Aaron, and that's why I got behind the brand. So credit to you on that.
And that's an interesting point. You're very involved, CEO Aaron. A lot of your videos you do on products in particular are very. You actually still do the videos yourselves, breaking down the ingredients and breaking down how the compounds actually work. What sort of did you have? Do you do the formulations yourself? Do you have a hand in that step of the process as well? Like, where's your how does when you're conceiving products that you've put together, how's that process sort of look with yourself these days?
Yeah, so for us, 99% of the product development is Eric Hart, who I mentioned in the beginning. I like to stay well versed. I mean, truthfully, I'm a fan of supplements. I mean, I've been taking supplements since I was 13 years old. I love the industry. I love products. I love the development. I like to think that I'm very well versed in the science behind the ingredients. But Eric, you mentioned, this business really, even though it did have obviously a big startup phase, it's always the goal has always been to be the biggest sports supplement company in the world, and honestly in history. So that's always been the goal. So we've kind of always acted as if. And so I wouldn't say I'm the best formulator in the world. I think I could do okay if I had to, but Eric has the background for it. He has a science background, and he has a proven track record of success now. So I know, and this is a tough thing for most business owners, and it wasn't that easy for me either, is that you're not going to be able to do everything. You're not going to be the best at everything. You're not going to, every idea can't be your idea. And so for me, even though I am very involved and I'm involved in pretty much every part of the business, I'm not going to tell you I'm the best at logistics or I'm the best at X, Y, and Z. You know, I may have the ultimate or final say in a lot of those things, but usually I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of really good advisors here that work for REDCON1 where I'm able to lean on them and say, okay, you probably know better than me. Let's go with your idea. And so for me, the product development looks like this. So we come up with an idea. Sometimes the idea for the product may be mine. Sometimes, most times it's probably not. But initially, the initial products like Total War, that was a group kind of thing. And then since then, you know, we've had ideas like MRE. MRE was literally me and Eric talking in his office where there was a product that you guys probably remember. 5% came out with a product called, I think, Real Food or something.
Yeah. It was very popular here, actually.
Yeah, very popular here.
Egg whites and oats,
Yeah.
I think it was, wasn't it?
No, so that was just sweet potatoes, just carbs. There was no protein in it. And it was very popular here too. And me and him were talking, this is towards the very beginning of REDCON, maybe 2017. And I'm like, why are people buying this? It's like $60 and it's just sweet potatoes or whatever it was, oats. It was like nothing, there was no reason for it. And I was like, so me and Eric were talking, I'm like, why would they not put protein in it? Like, why not put, if you're gonna make it Whole Foods, they should do like a bodybuilder when you're going to the grocery store, you're getting chicken, you're getting beef, you're getting salmon, you're getting eggs, you know, you're getting oats, yeah, you're getting vegetables, maybe you're getting some healthy fats. And at the time, Glambia, when he worked at Glambia, at the very end, they had a salmon isolate. And he mentioned, yeah, there is salmon isolate. I mean, I've tried it. And I was like, well, what does it taste like? He's like, it tastes like nothing. He's like, they pull the fat out of it, so it's pretty much tasteless. And I was like, that's interesting. And I know they have beef isolate. At the time, even though it wasn't great, they had one with MHP, had one with Muscle Meds. And I didn't like the taste of it, but I knew that it exists. Egg
Carnivore?
protein, obviously, everybody knows. What's that, Matt?
Carnivore. It was one from
Carnivore. Yeah, Carnivore. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never liked that, but I knew it was a thing, right? And then finally, chicken isolate was a surprise to me. I didn't know that existed, but so we decided to give it a shot, and we had the manufacturer make up samples. And when it came in, everybody was like not excited to try it. Everybody kind of thought it was going to be disgusting, you know. And,
Well, I was the same. So I actually I love MRE. I take it camping with me. Whenever I go camping, I got my tub of MRE, and it's kind of like, you know, I don't have to worry about bringing too much food with me. I've got my big tub of MRE. And I remember when I first got it though, and it was Maddie who put me onto it. And I remember seeing that there was salmon protein in there, and just the first thought was, this is going to taste like fish. And and I had that
smell like fish.
The blueberry muffin flavor, I think it was. Oh,
awesome stuff.
I had it, and it literally was like, I'm eating a muffin here, and I'm like, you know, this is me. This is me. I'm just gonna live off this from now on. I don't need to go and do my grocery shopping anymore. Save a lot of money on chicken and rice, right?
So would you say, Aaron, that with these sort of things, because you guys have obviously put out some remarkably successful hero products in their own right, would you attribute REDCON1's success more so to the specific products that you've put out with the brand name behind it, or would you say, you know, when you mentioned Dallas and doing content earlier, whilst the brand was even building, as products were being made and so on, would you contribute it more to you built the branding so much that by the time it launched, the products were all, you know, not an afterthought, but, you know, the products were sort of the byproduct of building a very successful brand under which they sat. So how do you think, what did you contribute success to? The products being product first and that getting you the name, or did you think you did a really successful job in building the branding and people, you know, sort of rallied to that more so?
So I can tell you, because we are a data-driven company and we really analyze the data, is that we sell very universally across all the products. So yeah, we have hero SKUs like MRE and MRE family in general, which is 3.
MRE bars.
MRE Light, MRE, and bars. Yeah, and the bars that sell very, very well. Total War is the #1 individual SKU. And that has, we've had probably 40 flavors by now, but we have 15 flavors that are regularly there, 13 MRE bar flavors that are regularly there. but I think that the answer to the question is you kind of have to have both, because we made sure that the products, stood up to ridicule, or stood up to analyzing them to make sure they're legit. So we're efficaciously dosed, backed by science from the beginning, because we do. I mean, everybody knows now customers are not dumb. They're going to look at the label, they're going to Google it, they're going to figure it out. Everybody knows if it has 4 grams of citrulline malate, that's not 6, and it should be 6.
You guys are also independently tested as well.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time and money on stuff like that other companies don't. That's an important factor that it's very expensive to test to third-party test products, and we make sure to do really so from the very beginning. Knowing that you want to be the biggest company in the world, you know that you need to do things differently. So Blackstone, for example, we never in a million years thought we would be sold, even GNC and Vitamin Shop. We didn't even, let alone grocery stores, convenience stores, Walmart. We didn't think about the United States military. We never even considered that. So the things that you do as a company like that versus a company who's going to be the biggest in the world are very, very different. But to answer your question, I think the marketing part in making the whole brand popular was a very big deal. We aren't product based. We certainly aren't ingredient based. Along the way, we've changed product ingredients several times. Like even Total War, we want to stay ahead of legislation and things change. And one of the things that's cool that we've done is been able to have a universal formula. So the formula that you guys get in Australia is no different than the formula that's in America. And that is not an easy thing to do. A lot of people have to adjust a lot of different things from one thing to another. And we realized early on, because one of the things that happened is DMHA was in the product, and I was, because back in the day with Blackstone, and having to stop products, cancel products, discontinue products. When I found out DMHA was on the cutting block, I was like, shit. So what's this going to do to the product and the brand? Because we have a really strong pre-workout. Is it not going to be strong? How is it going to affect it? And I really agonized over that. But I knew I didn't want to have a banned ingredient or a semi-banned or up in gray market ingredient in any of the products. So we decided to take it out, and something really amazing happened. Nothing happened. Zero. We didn't go down.
No crush when you take it as well, compared to the first formula.
I like it better now. Honestly, I like it better now.
I'm the same. I enjoy it. I enjoy it much more than the original formula, because we stocked both. But one thing I did notice about REDCON1 that's very different to a lot of the other brands on the market is there seems to be this very popular thing to do, which is use a whole lot of patented ingredients. And I notice you guys don't tend to use so many patented ingredients. Is that a conscious decision, or you just how'd that come about?
So there's a company here called Compound Solutions, and I like those guys. They're nice. Hector Lopez we work with on a different. He actually helps us with. It's called Safety Solutions. I forget the name. It's 3 S's. It's on all of our labels. Let me see. I can tell you. Give him a plug because he is a great guy. I can't. It's so small I can't even read it. But he handles all of our adverse event reporting. So if somebody has an issue, and as you get more and more popular, it's impossible not to have here in the States adverse event reports. So if somebody goes to the hospital for anything and they say, hey, I took Total War, that'll be an adverse event. And or somebody emails the site and say, hey, I took Double Tap and I had diarrhea. So we have to report that. That's the way you have to do it.
Kind of like if you got hit by a bus and died, but you had coronavirus, they report you as dead as coronavirus.
Well, that is very similar in a lot of ways, because anything that happens. So like if you have any kind of problem and you go to the hospital and say Total War, we'll get an adverse event report, and we have to handle it appropriately to be compliant. So Dr. Lopez handles that for us. So he's also involved with Compound Solutions. So is Matt Tidwell, who runs it. They're very nice guys, and I understand their business, and I don't want to say anything negative about that kind of business, but I will say that ultimately ingredients, you can use beta alanine or you can use carnosine, right? You can choose that, and that can be a marketing play for you. And I get that. I totally get it. But for us, we've never needed that, and it's never made sense. And we've talked to them about products and ingredients before, and several other. I'm using them because I like those guys the best. And I've talked to a lot of people about that kind of thing. It's always like, well, are we helping you or are you helping us? Because that's always the thing where if they want to charge me extra money, REDCON extra money to use their ingredient, I feel like they should be giving it to us cheaper so that we can help popularize their ingredient. But I have yet to come across anybody who wants to pay me to put it in there.
I think you're at the rare scenario where you can actually popularize someone else. Most of the brands aren't big enough to say that we're going to make you popular, so that's
Right.
probably where that comes in. But I think one thing that because as Stu mentioned right at the start, a lot of our listeners, Aaron, are very they're business minded, they're young entrepreneurs, they're store owners, they're business owners, they're in retail, they're in wholesale. And I think something that's of particular value, it's been almost a recurring theme across people who are quite successful in their respective fields, is branding and build and marketing. And I guess if we could get one piece of value out of this for our listeners, I think it would definitely be what would you recommend to someone, young Aaron, or any of us starting brands and so on, any listeners who are starting brands or want to build a business or who are struggling to build a branding or market a particular message? What would you?
So you want him to give away his secrets,
I'm
and then be directly
happy.
competing with Promobolics.
They've just done some amazing things though.
I'm happy to. So the one thing I've learned, right, is that in my opinion anyway, in my life, giving away the secrets is a good thing. So I think that a lot of people feel like there's only a limited amount there's this much success in the world, and if I give you a little bit that helps you take this much, then my success will be limited. And I honestly don't believe that. I'm not going to list them off, but there's a lot of supplement CEOs that I talk to, that I'm friends with, that I'm giving very important advice to, and they take it and have achieved success with some of the advice, and I'm always happy for them. And that there's two ways to look at competition. Either you want to crush them, which I'm cool with that too. It's not my method, but you want to crush them, or you want to see them successful and you just want to be better than them, and that's me. So I want to be the best. And I don't want anybody to be better than me, but I'm happy to help them be better than they are now, right? Yeah. And if they can be better than me, then that's something that I need to do. I need to up my game. But the answer to the question, in my opinion, is first off, you have to. Let me take one step back. So for supplement company store owners, and I've owned supplement company stores and I've closed them. And the reason why I closed them was because I wasn't able to pay the attention to them that is required. So a supplement company, a store, a specific retail outlet, or a website, you need to provide value to the customer. No doubt about it. So why is GNC dealing with problems here in America? Why are they? I hope they don't declare bankruptcy and hope they pay me the money they owe me. But the reason why is because they don't provide value. They have a cashier that rings you up and that's it. They need to be
very transactional.
Yeah, they need to be of service. You can't just bring people up.
You guys have a dedicated sales team. I've been to your old HQ, and I remember walking in, meeting all these salespeople dedicated. I remember also you mentioned Eduardo and your warehouse manager as well. Meeting all those guys, Eddie, man, those guys were sweating balls and just going hard. I got to shout to those guys as well, man. Very hardworking.
Yeah, well, that's part of 100%. So part of that is definitely part of the advice, right? Number one is to provide value. Make sure you're providing more than just selling the products. You have to be helping people, providing advice, providing value. Number two, for sure, is what you just said, Matt, is building a strong team. I'm sorry, it's thundering and lightning over here. It's like a hurricane.
It's scary over there, man. It was like when I was there, I remember it was going to be like a hurricane or something.
You know what? At the moment, I think that we may be in the middle of the apocalypse. We've got these viruses happening. We've got
very well be.
People rioting. It's a strange time in the world at the moment.
Oh my God, is it ever a strange time in the world? But building a strong team. So people at REDCON1, if you walk around, and Matt has, you can feel the energy here because people want to be here, and the reason they want to be
and
here.
And they're still there now. They're still there now.
They're still there, yeah, of course. They're still there, of course, yeah. People will stay here on their own. So I let people come in later. So a lot of times people won't come into the office until 10, but we also have people stay till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Not because I'm forcing them to, because I'm gone. I have to go home. I got kids. I can't stay, but they'll be here till whenever they're done with their job. And that speaks to, the fact that the people love their job here because they feel like they're part, and they are part of something bigger than themselves. And so creating a strong team is important because nobody's going to care about your business as much as you're going to care about your business. But if you do a good job, you can create some loyalties to your business that's very close. And so like here, I probably have 125 people in the office here. I think that a large portion of those people feel like this business is their business. And that is something that's very important because you're not going to be able to be at your store all the time. You're not going to be able to be watching your website all the time. You won't be able to watch all your ads that you're running all the time. You need people that give a shit. Because I've had people that don't give a shit too, and it's cost me hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because I took my eye off the ball thinking they were caring, but they weren't. And that is a very important thing. Hiring the right people, firing the wrong people, and creating a very strong team, because that'll pay dividends. And then, so
just on that point though, I must say, as far as like CEOs go, we kind of have this almost this preconceived idea about what a CEO is, or someone who is in charge of a business of your size, and you tend to think of them as like this person who sits in their office, they're the boss man, kind of a dick maybe, does not really relate to people, not really down to earth. But you strike me as the kind of CEO who you could sit down and have a beer with and have a bit of a laugh with, which is very cool. Like I think if I was involved in a company like that, obviously I'd want to get behind the brand because you're someone who can relate to people, but you still command respect, right?
I mean, I do my very best to be that way, and I'm glad that's how it looks from the outside in. And I mean, that's something that's very important to me, for people to know that I don't view myself any better than anybody else. And when it gets busy for times for packing, I make sure that I'm willing and able and do go down there and pack the boxes with the guys. And
like those days you have those 24-hour sales, whatever. You're like there to like
when
the
we
next
do crazy
day.
sales, yeah.
You know what you should do? Well. You know what you should do, Aaron, when you're down there packing the boxes? You should get a little Sharpie and just sign a couple of the tub lids.
I've done that.
So, I've done that. People get excited when they have signed by Aaron Singerman.
Yes, I have.
It's value, right? It's all value.
Yeah, I have done that. Yes, I've we put a packing slip in all the orders. So not all the time, but when I packed them certainly for Black Friday, I'll sign and thank you and stuff. And I've definitely got tagged in some of that on social media. But I think that being relatable is very important. So it's a weird thing, because the business here has grown to such a level that I can't have an open door policy anymore, which is kind of how it used to be. Because otherwise I'd be constantly having one after another. It'd be all day long. I'd just be talking to people about whatever's going on. But I still try to make sure I make the rounds. I speak to everybody. We do a whole bunch of, so one of the things we do every month is we do a town hall where me and Eric and Wardo talk to everybody and answer questions. So they can ask anything they want about anything they want. And that's everybody. That's not just like people in the executive wing here, but it's everybody. And then every 6 weeks we do a team building thing. Like the last one, because of COVID-19 and stuff, we did it all in the warehouse. And I got the big bounce houses and huge slides, and we did an open bar and catered food and had a Nerf gun battle. So we made the best of.
I'm going to give you, Aaron, my contact details, and I'll be expecting an invite to the next one of these things.
Yeah, we try to make it fun.
Just to shift gears a little bit, Aaron, getting back to REDCON1 and the company's success and the growth of the company. Obviously, things were charging along really, really well. You had all this brand exposure, you had Dallas and all this sort of thing. And then, we lost Dallas, which was obviously crushing for everyone. I remember seeing your first appearance after that happened, and you were almost white as a ghost. You could hear in your voice how crushed you were. What kind of impact did that have on yourself and on the company?
Well, yes, I definitely was. So, Dallas was not just an athlete, right? So we have a lot of athletes. We have a lot of very great athletes, and very fortunate to have really picked not just big names or not just good followings, but actual good people. And so they're very different than Dallas, because Dallas was in the office every day. So that's the one thing people didn't realize, is that he was in a lot of the marketing meetings. He participated in the actual marketing ideas. He was around all the time. It wasn't like
blue collar work ethic for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he wanted to be. He wasn't just. We called him the face of the brand. I mean, because he was more than just an athlete. He literally was an employee. He was a friend. He was like our family. And then he also wasn't sick, and he was young. So because he was extremely young, and because he seemed totally fine, he was in the office the day before mean, he was in the marketing meeting the day before he passed away. So he seemed fine. He seemed happy. You know, we were joking about stuff. And then, you know, like that, he's dead. And so for everybody in the office, it was extremely shocking, you know, extremely dramatic, because it's, you know, when you, and unfortunately in my life, I've been around a lot more death than most people. And I've witnessed people dying in person. You know, it's very, very hard to see somebody die you don't know or that you like a little bit. So to see somebody, or to hear literally, because it's pretty visceral when they're there 1 minute, the next minute you hear they're dead. So it was tough. It was very tough because of how close we were to him, and everybody at the office was like, you know, devastated. And then we made a decision. You know, we made a communal group decision that, you know, Dallas went hard as hell on everything he wanted to do. You know, he pushed extremely hard. He was the hardest worker in the room. I mean, literally. So like, I don't just mean in the weight room, I mean, just in general. In line for the Olympia, you know, he comes to Australia Grand Prix, he falls down and had obviously some kind of health episode there. And he's got the booth shaking hands and taking pictures with people right after. I mean, he's just not somebody who was going to be outworked. And we always loved that about him. We thought, well, what would Dallas do? You know, how would he want us to, you know, continue? You know, because there was thought processes. Should we take some time off? Should we, like, you know, turn the site off for a month? Should we do, like, we didn't know how to handle, you know, do we continue? Do we turn off all the ads? Do we stop posting? Do we, you know, I don't know. How do you handle something like that? And I mean, if the face of the company dies, you know, like, how's that supposed to affect you? And so we made a decision, like, okay, so Dallas wants us to go hard as fuck. He wants us to give everything we have to go bigger and better. And that's what we did. And we, you know, in his memory, we pushed as hard as we could and gave everything we got. And it's turned out pretty awesome. And I think that a lot of Dallas's spirit is still here, helping that happen.
That's impressive with, as well, during his time here, what you guys built was probably some of the earliest, and value building content, I guess. I remember those videos watching, you know, watching a day in the life of, and, you know, I'm just walking through the steps, and it wasn't something that had been really done a lot, like the bodybuilding legends of you know, the Coleman era and so on. We didn't have access to their daily lives. We didn't see them a lot outside of muscular development, outside of flex, outside of expos. It was really sort of this enigma of what would happen out of, you know, like Dorian Yates in the shadow. No one really knew. He'd just pop up once a year on stage. You guys changed that a lot, and really, you know, really started, you know, we actually followed Dallas around, went a day in the life of in training, and how does the food look. Really got personal with the athletes. Was that a very conscious decision from the start to do something very different? Because it wasn't something that was being done at the time. So where did that come from? What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, with Dallas, for sure. I mean, that's the reason why he had to move to Boca, where we said, hey, I mean, I literally said, you have to move to Boca or we can't sign you. It was like one or the other. Because I know that needed to be done, because nobody was doing anything like that. And even, I mean, today, unfortunately, it's probably worse now, because there's not a lot of brands investing in following around their athletes and producing content. Really, all the content you see is being done by the athlete themselves. I mean, and I think that's
you guys have a dedicated filmer as well, media guy.
Yeah,
who I've met before.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas had somebody that literally we always had somebody like with Dallas. So, you know, and because he was here, it was pretty easy to do. I have 5 people on the film team, so, you know, if you have the cameras and the assets, you want to show that, because that's really, bodybuilding fans are different than other fans. Bodybuilding fans want to see that. They don't even need it to be highly produced. They just want content. They want to see every rep, every set, how much weight. They don't want it to be a music video. They want to see the real deal. And it's okay if it's not. So, like, in the marketing world, they'll tell you that any video over 2 minutes is bad, right? Because you can't keep people's attention for a very long period of time. Most successful, you know, mainstream marketing videos are very short. You know, commercials on TV are 15 to 30 seconds. So people want to convey a message quickly. But the bodybuilding fan doesn't want that. They want to see the whole fucking thing. They don't want it to jump to the end. They don't want to see just the face or the muscle moving. They want to see every part of the rep. And so we did that with Dallas. We also did it a lot with Luke, which unfortunately, you know, is another bad thing. But did much different, but very bad thing as well. So it's like, you know, we purposely have done that. We've cultivated that, and we'll continue to do that. as we get more different kinds of athletes. And it's an interesting place in bodybuilding now, because I'm not sure, like when people say, well, who's the next now, Luke or whatever, I don't even know. I don't know where to go now with it, you know?
Well, you've always had this real, it seems like this deep connection with bodybuilding. And I think that you're one of the brands that I really respect for that, because a lot of brands I see are going another direction. They're moving almost away from bodybuilding, into just influencer space, and really forgetting about the roots of this and the core of what this industry is and where it started. I mean, the fact gym culture comes from bodybuilding, right? But you've really, really stuck hard to that bodybuilding. Is there a particular reason for that? Is it just because you love bodybuilding and you've wanted to stick with it, or is it something that's really thought through?
So I think it's twofold. So one part is that absolutely I love bodybuilding, and and also there's a really part of me that wants to pay it forward, where like I came from bodybuilding. So if there was no bodybuilding, there would be no Aaron Singerman, there would be no REDCON1, there'd be none of it. So in my life, I was very, very lost. As I mentioned, doing drugs, I was addicted to heroin, and my life was such a mess. And when I got off all of the drugs, I was looking for purpose and meaning. And the only thing that I could think of that I wanted to do, that I felt passionate about, was bodybuilding. And obviously, I don't have it in me genetically or whatever to be a pro bodybuilder and make money, but I was able to get inside or be part of the bodybuilding industry and make a living. And then become.
You're a networking wizard, bro. You're a networking wizard. You got a shot with Dave Palumbo as well, which a lot of people don't know. Like, that's pretty hard to do. Yeah.
Yes, I did. I did push my way in to get in there, and it didn't happen easily or by accident for sure. But I was able to get into the bodybuilding industry and make a living, and then make a very good living, and then make what you see today based on bodybuilding. So if it wasn't for because I know Jim Mannion very well, and I speak to him regularly, and we're friends. And then before that, I got the chance to meet Joe Weider before he passed away, and met Ben Weider in passing. But I really didn't know those guys. Unfortunately, I never really got to talk to them and know. But I know Jim very, very well, and I can't help but feel like I owe something to him. Because it's like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this. He created the NPC. I covered every NPC show with Dave Palumbo many, many times over. And now I advertise at a lot of these, almost all of the NPC shows. And I'm the main sponsor of many, many, many of them. And I feel like, the best way to say it is I feel like I owe it to him. I feel like I owe it to the sport to be the company that gives back, that sponsors the athletes, that sponsors the shows. And then the other, number two, the second reason, is because I do see value in it. People ask me a lot, other business owners say, in our space, why do you sponsor so many shows? And so part of the answer is, yeah, I definitely do feel like I should, like I need to, like it's the right thing to do. But I also, I'm able to, and have developed a really great following. Based on doing that, like Stu mentioned, is that, that, I guess, having my logo on the stage, having the REDCON1 sample packs and the goodie bags, showing support to these shows and the industry in general and all the bodybuilding shows, those people, whether they're a big influencer or a micro influencer, if they're wearing the REDCON shirt at the gym, then they've taken Total War samples, or now Food Bar, we're putting in all the things that they're telling other people they are important. They're an important consumer base that have people following them. So those are two reasons. One, I feel like I need to, and then number two, it has been a profitable thing, I believe, especially for the smaller shows. The big shows like the Olympia and Arnold, some of the bigger dollar shows where I'm spending big money, it's hard to say. But with the shows where I'm spending $500 or $1,000, and I'm in 500 goodie bags, I'm on the logo's huge on the stage, I feel like I get a great deal.
You're also a massive supporter and giver to the military as well, and the frontline people. I have to mention. I feel I have to mention that.
Yes, we always do that. We always send products to guys and girls in the front lines, guys and girls protecting the country. And one of the weirdest things that's happened, of a few weird things, one of the weirdest things that is that I thought that REDCON1 to me at the time when we started it was a patriotic brand that supported the United States military. Now, the funny thing that has happened is that it has translated across the world. So like we're the number one, we're the sponsor for the Iraqi Special Forces. I would never have thought that would be the case. It's such a weird. I mean, who would have ever thought? So I get all these guys, SAS guys in the UK, and you guys who special forces say, I love REDCON, I love Total War, but I'm always like, wow, it's such an interesting thing that it translated across the whole world.
I think it's like with the military guys, you know, there's almost this this internal connection between them, regardless of you know which country's defense force you're in. There's this kind of there's this bond that they have, and I think that the military sort of theme with the Total War, it's very cool. You know, regardless of if you're in the military or not, you know, as you know, as guys, we all grew up as little boys at one point in time watching
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, Rambo, you know, war movies and stuff like that. You know, I think that it's funny, even the fact that you really sort of had to tell us what Navy SEALs were at the start of this when we grew up watching American movies, right? We know what Navy SEALs are. So it's like, yeah, all right, it's based on the American military to begin with, but you know, don't forget that you know the US owns the movie industry, and so we're very familiar with it, and some of us are almost patriotic Americans at heart just from the movies that we've watched.
It's but what's really interesting is that you've and it circles back to speaks to the branding part, but really by really doubling down in one particular, sending one very strong message instead of trying to please everyone. You guys are very clear, obviously, from the first second what you guys are about. And I find being, competing in shows myself and being 4 years in the Defence Force here, I found like they both have a lot of similarities in that there's a lot of camaraderie between both my time in military and bodybuilding, a lot of commonalities, right? And I think by you've tapped into both. And I think my question would be, if with your, I guess, speaking to branding and stuff, was that a very purposeful thing from day one? Pick one thing, send a very strong message, and double down, as opposed to try and be the crowd pleaser, but possibly reach more people. Like, do you often go, what if REDCON was the Gen Pop brand? It could hit, you're in 88 countries. Obviously, it's worked. But was that a very purposeful thing? Let's pick one thing, double down on that, or is that just because of your grassroots?
No, we definitely. So one of the things that Eric Hart and I, we sat down to actually form the brand. We said, okay, so we looked at the space at the time, and we're honest in the fact that sports supplements has never really had a true brand. When I say that, I mean brand that knows who they are, knows who they're going to be, and has an actual brand plan from before the company starts. So we've had a lot of big brands in sports supplements, but what does Optimal Nutrition stand for? Who the hell knows? Nobody knows. Who is Optimal Nutrition? Nobody knows. It's a nameless, faceless thing. And I'm not saying, those guys are probably all great guys, and I'm not trying to say any bad, because everybody's pretty much like this. Even BSN back in the day when it was doing great, and I'm friends with Scott and Chris who started and owned BSN, like, it didn't stand for anything. It was just the red bottle. It's the red bottle of Ronnie.
Ronnie Coleman get huge.
Well, that's the first brand that I used, and it was purely because of Ronnie Coleman. So, like Will and myself, we both competed in bodybuilding. Yourself, Aaron, have been a competitive bodybuilder. I've seen some of those board shorts photos of you.
I was a terrible bodybuilder.
Obviously, Maddie, you're would classify as a bodybuilder regardless of if you compete or not. I just think it's very cool that you've stuck to that, because like I started training when I was 16, and at that time it wasn't this fitness industry was not a social media industry. I was getting all my information from Muscular Development magazine, and every brand was bodybuilders. That's what you did, and BSN was huge. And it was a very exciting time for me. And
Eric Hart was there, by the way, the formulator of REDCON1. He was there at the heart of the start of that, right, Aaron?
He traveled everywhere with Ronnie. He was Ronnie's, initially he was like his handler. That's how he got going.
His handler. I like that.
I love it. Ronnie needs a handler. He's a big
literally,
boy.
Literally. Ronnie, I have very good Ronnie Coleman stories that I can't say on here. But yeah, he literally, where Ronnie went, Eric went. Wherever they went, he would make sure Ronnie was in the car, had his passport, his luggage was packed, and that he was where he needed to be when he was supposed to be there, and that Ronnie had food. And that's really how Eric got going. He ended up becoming the head of marketing for the company, but he started off kind of initially he was a salesperson for for like we have our call center where you're doing sales direct to consumer and worked his way up to Ronnie's handler.
He's a big boy, by the way, Eric. I know he's shaped up now, but man, I can imagine back in his prime how big that guy used to be.
It's so funny what you. It's so funny what you said about. It's so funny what you said about Ronnie Coleman. I used to work for NDA, which used to distribute the Ronnie Coleman brand in Australia, and when we had Ronnie Coleman over here in 2012. I had him in one of my stores, and it was exactly like you were saying. It was like we had the kind of everyone running around doing something for Ronnie. And I remember his kind of PR guy said, Ronnie needs grilled chicken and rice. That's what he's going to eat. You're going to organize that for him and bring it to him. And I remember I went to a restaurant just up the road from my shop, and I said, I need grilled chicken and rice. And they're like, well, it's not on our menu, but nevertheless they made it for Ronnie. And I remember bringing it back to Ronnie, putting it in front of him. He's like, yeah, this looks good, man, but where's my barbecue sauce at? So I ended up having to run down to McDonald's and get some of the little sauce sachets for him, so he had some barbecue sauce to put on it. But it was very funny the way kind of.
Like Ronnie. Like Ronnie. I got a good Ronnie story for you I haven't told before. So I was at Ronnie's Christmas party in 2012 or so. And I brought my wife, Darielle, and me. I think we had just gotten married, so maybe it was 2000.
Boss lady of REDCON1, by the way. Shout out to her.
Oh yes, of course. Thank you. So we were at the party, and I introduced her to Ronnie. I don't think she had ever met him before. And so me and Ronnie were sitting at the bar and having a vodka. He was having a Hennessy or whatever he drinks, and we're sitting there talking. And he goes, "Damn, look at that girl in the red." And I'm like. I look at the girl, I'm like, Ronnie, that's my wife. He goes, oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Sorry, Aaron. I literally just introduced you to her a minute ago. And he's like, sorry, man. Sorry.
I watched his podcast with Joe Rogan, by the way.
Literally, that's like,
good on Ronnie.
She walked away. And as she's walking away, you go, damn.
Man, that's crazy that you mentioned, and throwing back to that era with magazines as well. I always find that fascinating. Like, I think that was where it started. Was like we've had some guests in recent history that have had a similar theme of like anyone who's been successful has had to give value for free without any expectation, and eventually it gets returned. And I think you said you did 2 years writing content in magazines before you ever got, before you started even in business in a bigger way. Everyone, I think that's something very valuable for listeners to take home, because we're about to run short on time. But I think it's a great take home message for a lot of people who are listening, who are starting businesses, who unfortunately are seeing on social media now the overnight success story, which, as we all know, are always 10, 20 years in the making now. That's probably the biggest thing, is giving something that a consumer can get value from without any expectation, and assuming that the karma will sort of pay that forward one day, like you do with bodybuilding, like you do with the magazines and the content. So that's a really, really nice theme that I've heard run through pretty much this whole hour that we've had you for, mate. So thank you very much for your time and sharing.
But before we close out though, Aaron, can you give us some sort of an inside scoop, something maybe that's coming with REDCON1, something you're doing, something you're working on? Leave the fans on a final note that can get us all excited.
Okay. So we have a few things that are exciting and that are coming up, but the thing that I'm most excited about, it's been a long time in the coming, is the MRE ready to drink, the RTD. So we are officially less than 8 weeks out from the ready to drink being launched in mid-August. So that is a very, very, very big deal and large project that has taken us forever, over a year to come to the point where we're at now. Getting hot fill line time in America is next to impossible. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you we have begged, politicked, and bribed people to get line time on the hot fill lines here in America. So we are
give you Total War for life.
Oh man, dude, this has been a big deal. It's been a huge effort, and so we finally passed our second testing product. So what you have to do is with Tetra Pak, because it's in if you know, like the lean body, Labrada lean body, they're in that kind of thick paper. You guys know.
Another one. Yep.
Yeah. So we went to Denton, Texas, to Tetra Pak to bring it our formula on the line there, and you have to prove that it runs well. And once it runs well, and there's no kind of clogging up the process, then they will help you find a manufacturer. We found our manufacturer, and met with them, and they said, okay, now we have to do another test, another pilot run, which took months and months and months to organize. And then we officially successfully passed that and have now finally secured line time. And it's a reoccurring line time, which is obviously important. You don't want to run it once and then never be able to run it again. And so it's a big light here. But it's a very, very exciting thing that we can't wait for. We have commitments from, man.
You do realize my camping trips will never be the same now. You know, I used to be able to just take a tub of MRE with me, and now I'm going to have to bring cases of these MRE ready to drinks now. So
put them on
like you just took up a lot more space.
People do.
Yeah.
You can bring a suitcase full of MRE. Yeah.
Well, that's
awesome. Thanks so much for your time there, Aaron. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And you know, I'd love to get you on again at some stage, but really hugely appreciated the time you've been able to give us.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I love Australia. Other than America, Australia is my second favorite country.
You've been here before.
I've been there before 4 times, and I would love to come back again. Unfortunately, your customs people or your importation people found out I got arrested for steroids when I was 18, and have been very difficult to get me back in there. But
you were the unlucky ones that got busted.
Yes, yeah. Tony Doherty has been trying to help me, and there's a lawyer.
We'll try and pull some strings for you, Aaron. We'll pull some strings,
please.
Mate. We'll get you back.
Whatever we can do to get me back.
I'll smuggle you in a protein shipment, maybe.
Put me in the middle of a pallet.
Stack the tubs around you. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having us or having me again. And thank you, Australia in general, for all the support for REDCON1.
Shout out to Spartan and Putty as well.
Yes, of course. He was the first one to bring us in. So, and the first one to bring Blackstone in as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Catch you later.
All right, guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.